Sophie Turner is everywhere these days, and for good reason. From her legacy as the steely Sansa Stark on Game of Thrones, to helming the latest X-Men installment, Dark Phoenix, and not to mention a Las Vegas wedding to none other than Joe Jonas, Turner has cemented her place as Hollywood royalty. But even though she's been getting a ton of press, there are some things that even her biggest fans might not know. So let's dive in on the life and career of the successful actress. It's hard to remember a time when Game of Thrones wasn't such a huge part of our pop culture, but it's true. Back in 2011, no one had any idea what a phenomenon the series would turn out to be, so casting was open to just about anyone instead of exclusively Hollywood A-listers. What you might not know is that it was the very first TV or film role for a then 15-year-old Sophie Turner. But while she may have been new to acting in front of the camera, she was no stranger to the stage, having been a part of a small local theater troupe called the Playbox Theatre Company since the age of 3. But while she had been acting for almost 12 years already, it was actually her high school drama teacher who put her up for her very first audition for Game of Thrones. At the time, the show was conducting a nationwide casting search all over the United Kingdom, which included visiting schools in search of the show's many young stars. When they arrived at Turner's school, Sophie states that her drama teacher threw her and a bunch of her classmates in the running together, and they auditioned during lunch. It certainly worked out for her, as she was called back for 4 more auditions, screen tests, and chemistry tests before her mom broke the news to her that she had been offered the role. While landing a huge role on what would become one of the biggest and most beloved TV shows of all time might seem like a dream come true, it came with some harsh realities for the teenage Sophie Turner, who had to quite literally grow up in front of the camera. Puberty is one of the most awkward and uncomfortable times for any one of us, and we can't imagine having to go through it under intense public scrutiny.
7 hounds.
Sophie says that her teens were particularly hard because of the relentless comments being made about her weight and her skin, so much so that she sought out therapy to help work through it. By the time her first X-Men movie came along, she was more confident and working with a trainer to stay healthy. One of the most notable things about Sansa Stark is, of course, her signature long red hair. Fans of the show were surprised to find out that Sophie is not actually a natural redhead, and apparently were pretty upset about it. While it is true that Sophie Turner is actually a natural blonde, she's been asked to keep it red not only for Game of Thrones, but for the fiery Jean Grey in X-Men. Even though fans and producers love Sophie's ginger hair, she's said before that she feels more at home as a blonde, and actually stopped dyeing her hair for the final season of Game of Thrones. She opted to pull a Khaleesi and wear a wig instead. Sophie did keep one special and very real thing from Game of Thrones, however, though it's not so much of a thing as it is a real live creature. Her Direwolf lady, to be exact. Well, okay, so not the actual Direwolf, but the Northern Inuit dog named Zuni who played her. Remember Sansa's adorable wolf dog from season 1 that she brought with her to King's Landing? The same dog that Cersei forced Ned Stark to kill in a pretty classic Cersei move? Well, after Zuni wrapped up her final season as Lady, it turned out that she was in need of a forever home. Luckily for her, Sophie's family took an instant liking to her, and now Zuni happily lives in England with the rest of the Turners. It's a good thing that Sansa's pet of choice was a direwolf, because Sophie Turner is actually really allergic to horses. Sure, we've seen Sansa on horseback a handful of times over the years on Game of Thrones, but what we don't see is that she has an inhaler in her pocket the entire time to use between takes. She claims to already be an asthmatic, but her allergies definitely flare up when she's in the vicinity of any equine friends. This probably means that we won't see Turner starring in any horse-centric dramas or period pieces anytime soon, but with all she endured during Game of Thrones, she'd probably be up for the task anyway. While starring in the biggest show on TV and one of the most star-studded movie franchises ever has probably turned Sophie into a stone-cold pro, there was a time when even she got so starstruck she didn't even know what to do with herself. But who exactly did she lose her cool over? Maybe an Oscar-winning actress she admires like Meryl Streep, or maybe a dream director a la Steven Spielberg. Nope. Sophie claims that she actually cried the first time she was introduced to Justin Bieber. Apparently, they met when Sophie and Joe Jonas were visiting a house in Miami that Bieber happened to be in at the time, and while she tried to keep it nonchalant, she immediately ran into the bathroom to cry after they said hello. While Arya and Sansa Stark didn't get to share that much screen time on Game of Thrones, that didn't stop the women who play them from becoming best friends in real life. Sophie and Maisie Williams quickly became inseparable on set and off, to the point that the pair even got matching tattoos that commemorate the day they met. And you might think that their friendship has slowed since wrapping up the final season of Game of Thrones, but that is definitely not the case. While Maisie wasn't present at Sophie's surprise wedding to Joe Jonas, there is apparently going to be a second, more traditional wedding later this year in France, and Maisie is already on board to be a bridesmaid. And what about that shotgun wedding between Sophie and Joe that made everyone's jaw drop earlier this year? The recently engaged pair decided to run off to a Las Vegas chapel right after the Jonas Brothers performance and get hitched then and there. They have since confirmed that they had to get legally married in the United States first before their upcoming, more official wedding in France, and that they were more into the classic Vegas wedding than a regular old trip to the courthouse. Their nuptials were posted to Instagram by Diplo because why not? It was officiated by Elvis, with ring pops for wedding bands, and witnessed by the other Jonas Brothers and Priyanka Chopra as Sophie's maid of honor. While Turner has been very fortunate with her career at such a young age, she admits that the industry is far from perfect. In fact, one instance in particular made her see a recent reality for what it really is. Along with acknowledging that her success is partly because of luck and timing, she can't deny that social media is now a part of the game. Turner says that she was in the running for a project, and it had come down to her and one other actress. While Sophie herself claims that this actress was far better than she is, it was Sophie's impressive social media following that won her the role in the end. It's not right, she claimed, but it's part of the movie industry now. With all of the access to luxury that fame offers, you might think that Sophie Turner would be inclined to deck herself out in designer clothes from head to toe, but actually, the actress much prefers casual comfort over expensive fashion. She said that she's a really big fan of men's shirts and hoodies and generally dresses more tomboyish all around. The same goes with her daily makeup routine, or lack thereof. Rather than taking the Kardashian route of a meticulously made-up, camera-ready face, Sophie prefers to leave all of that to the professionals on set or for a photo shoot. When she's off of work and around town, she sticks to some mascara and concealer, and that's pretty much it. Sophie has managed to stay pretty down to earth over the years, despite the fact that she shot to international stardom at such a young age. She credits her family and childhood friends with keeping her humble, as she definitely doesn't come from a Hollywood background. Turner's mother is actually a school teacher, and her father works for a pallet distribution company. She said that having two brothers is also a big part of what keeps her grounded, because when she goes home to visit them, they still treat her like their little sister, not a celebrity, and they're not afraid to rough her up a little bit, like only families can. But having a solid family back home doesn't mean she doesn't have room in her life for new members, like her brand new sister-in-law, actress Priyanka Chopra. Sophie and Kevin Jonas' wife Danielle were both bridesmaids at Nick and Priyanka's wedding, as the pair had instantly bonded during the year leading up to it. These new sisters have traveled the globe together, had pajama parties, shared boxes at sporting events, and even starred together in the recent Jonas Brothers music video for their new single Sucker. The trio, who refer to themselves as the J Sisters, have also been very supportive of one another on social media. When The Cut released an article questioning the legitimacy of Priyanka and Nick's love affair, Sophie jumped at the chance to defend her new family. And as the finale of Game of Thrones loomed, Priyanka cheered publicly for her sister Sophie. Speaking of the Jonas Brothers, Sophie's new husband Joe has spoken openly about how influential she was in actually getting the band back together. So there you have it, Jonas Brothers fans. You have Sophie Turner to thank for the big reunion. According to Joe, he was able to confide in Sophie about everything, and her perspective about reforming the Jonas Brothers helped push him to be open to the idea. He also says that seeing Turner's amazing relationship with her own brothers really made him see how important it was for him to mend his relationship with his own brothers, which led to them deciding to go back into the studio together and begin working on another album. While their relationship might sound a little bit like a fairy tale, it hasn't been simply smooth sailing for Sophie and Joe. The pair originally met after being told that they should by their many mutual friends, but it was Joe who took the first step and direct messaged Sophie on Instagram. They became an official item in 2016 and the rest is history, but actually there was a 24-hour period in the middle of all of it that Sophie recalls as the worst day of both of their lives. They actually broke up for that fateful day while Sophie was going through a particularly hard time with her mental health. According to Turner, Joe said that she needed to love herself more than she loved him before he could be with her seriously, which changed everything for her, and thankfully, the pair reunited. Sophie's adopted direwolf Zuni isn't the only canine member of the Turner Jonas family. Sophie and Joe have adopted 2 other pups together in their time, 2 Alaskan Kleekais named Porky and Waldo. Porky was actually a gift from Joe to Sophie, but the name was a bit of a mistake in the beginning. Originally, Sophie had been dropping hints about wanting a Pomsky, a Husky Pomeranian mix, but Joe misheard her and thought that she was talking about what she would want to name her future dog. Now, luckily, Porky is an adorable name for a puppy, and it stuck. He's a good traveler too, having spent time on tour with Joe and on set with Sophie, keeping cool in her trailer while she shot scenes for X-Men Dark Phoenix. Being an actress might mean having to be able to blend into any role she takes on, but that hasn't stopped Sophie from getting a number of tattoos all over her body. She has a total of 11 pieces of ink that represent all sorts of moments in her life, and some just for fun. She has a very delicate drawing of the North Star running down her spine, a G on her pinky finger to represent her grandfather, a geometric tattoo of the infinite triangle on her upper arm, and the Stark family direwolf symbol on the back of her arm with the words "The Pack Survives" underneath. She has her brother's initials on her toe, a rabbit on her other arm, an outline of a woman on her thigh, a J on her wrist, the X-Men symbol, the date she met Macy Williams, and a tally of 5 on her finger. No one could have predicted Sophie's rise to stardom after being cast on Game of Thrones, but perhaps she was a little better prepared to shoot the show than even she realized. While growing up in rural England, Sophie and her family lived on a small farm complete with pigsties, a paddock, and barns filled with animals. She said that this gave her lots of opportunities to play around in the mud and muck as a child, and was never precious about getting dirty. This must have come in handy shooting Game of Thrones when so much of it took place outside in terrible weather for hours on end. Not only has Sophie shared her acting talent with the world on screen, she's also been dabbling in the world of audiobooks. That's right, Sophie's voice can be heard as the narrator of more than one audiobook out there today. First off, there's a collection of 21 stories called Dangerous Women Stories that was released in 2013, in which she voiced the story The Girl in the Mirror by Lev Grossman. After that, she also lent her voice to the audiobook version of City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare in 2014. She is also adept at accents, nailing a standard American one for her role as Jean Grey and a Southern one for her upcoming drama, Josie. If you've been on the internet lately, chances are you've seen a picture of Sophie holding what has become her trademark jewel. Turner has recently moved on from smoking cigarettes, which she did casually, to the very trendy Juul. So much so that Jennifer Lawrence actually brought up the subject in a recent interview with the cast of X-Men. When asked if anyone cried during a pivotal scene in the movie, Jennifer said she did, after watching Turner break out into real tears while filming. But not for the reason you might think. Lawrence claims it's because Turner's vocal coach took her Juul away right before action, and Sophie started crying real tears at the loss. Not one to enjoy a lot of downtime, Sophie has already begun filling her post-Game of Thrones schedule with as many projects as she can. But that's not to say that she isn't being selective of the roles she's chosen. She's also taking this chance to step into a new role as producer, taking complete charge of her career choices. She's producing and starring in the upcoming Girl Who Fell from the Sky, the true story of Julianne Kopka, a woman who fell 10,000 feet after her plane was struck by lightning and landed in the middle of the Amazon jungle and then survived the wilderness alone for 11 days. Game of Thrones fans are a passionate and opinionated bunch of people, so much so that Sophie has had to come to Sansa's defense on more than one occasion over the years. While Sansa herself made some questionable questionable choices early on in the series, she became a powerful woman as the show went on, and Turner is the first to acknowledge this and stand up for her character. When a guy took to Twitter to defend the actions of Littlefinger, saying all that he wanted was justice for the way he was treated and that he never actually hurt or betrayed Sansa, Sophie quickly replied and shut down his argument with the fact that Littlefinger willingly sold her to the Boltons. And we all know how that turned out. While Turner maintains a healthy diet and exercise regimen while working in order to keep herself feeling her best and energized for those long days on set, that doesn't mean she isn't happy to treat herself every now and again. And what is her favorite thing to binge? American fast food is this Brit's #1 cheat meal. While working in Atlanta for a month, she discovered Chick-fil-A and still gets serious cravings for it daily. Not only that, but like any person who's spent some time in Los Angeles, she is also very into In-N-Out Burger. And when she can't get that, she loves a Wendy's Frosty, because honestly, who doesn't love a Frosty? While the characters she plays may be fearlessly brave women, Sophie herself has one seriously weird phobia. And no, it's not White Walkers or even spiders. It's drains, like sewer drains. She claims to have a phobia of stepping over them on the sidewalk, which she apparently picked up when she was a child, though she doesn't remember who from. For some reason, she actually gets nervous when she sees one coming and will go out of her way to avoid them. If she can't and absolutely must step on one, she has to say the word onions to herself to reverse the curse. What curse, you ask? Well, that we may never know. Perhaps the most surprising thing about Sophie Turner is that, for a time, she wasn't the only one. That's right, Sophie actually had a twin while she was still in the womb. Sadly, her twin didn't make it past childbirth, and the complicated feelings about that have never left Sophie's mind. She said she always watched her two older brothers together and felt as though she were missing her double. After a lot of therapy and a very supportive family, she's come to terms with the loss and is now able to use those feelings of confusion and sadness in order to help her tap into her character's struggles. If you didn't love Sophie Turner already, maybe you do now. What do you think of the actress? Are you going to miss Sansa Stark, or are you excited to see what choices she makes next? Let us know down below, and make sure you subscribe to ScreenRant to keep up with all of our latest movie news.